Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Marvel Rivals Championship cast. We are here in EMEA, and I brought GottMoxi today, who has given me some time to get these games done, especially seeing as part of the EMEA team, we're going to have to do some MRC casts later, so we're getting a cheeky preview. We have ulterior motives, of course, both of us.
Yes, I mean, it's also going to be great to catch up with Oblivione, a team that a lot of people anticipated making it all the way into Ignite off of the qualifiers, and unfortunately were not able to. And they're definitely the firm favorites as we head into map number 1, which is going to be Spider Islands.
Yes, it is. So, fun matchup for us here. Oblivione, like you say, have been extremely strong. They lost a couple players a little bit ago, but they still have some absolute legends like Oligator, like Sector, like Intent. Fraud is on there, but it isn't in this game. And they today are against Crashers. This is a round 6 game in the upper bracket as we make our way through into our ban phases. Of course, the traditional ban phase.
Yes, no more advanced ban systems coming on through, as both EMEA and Psylocke will be removed, with EXO making sure to save that Human Torch, so going to have a lot of continuous pressure going out onto those Vanguards, as well as forcing all of the strategists to have to perma-deal with all of that incoming spam damage.
And to explain, of course, this means that all bans and picks are universal, affecting both teams, not picking for yourself and banning for your opponents like we see in Ignite. And immediately with the Torch in play, we're seeing hit scans start to appear with the protection onto the Hela from Crashers. While Hela has dipped down in terms of priority, she does still work, which she can do insane work, especially if comboed with the very popular and Rising Cloak and Dagger. If you can land a Terror Cape onto someone, or an Inspire from, say, a Mantis, or even a boost from Storm, who's making appearances sometimes, you can really start to pick people off quickly.
Yeah, and Hela gets a lot of advantage too coming from the Invis woman as a strategist, and given the fact that Human Torch has been saved and Luna has been taken off of the table, Invis is likely going to be one of those strategists that is kept in play. Magneto is also going to be in play, so a lot of those punishes, if these teams want to go for that option as a duelist, going to have to pass the reaction check time of having Meteor M to put a shutdown to Final Judgment.
And of course, this is mirrored on the other side. You'll often see these mirrored matchups between Punisher and Magneto, where one Magneto will try to Meteor M the Punisher, and the other will try to time the Iron Bulwark to block it. It is, like you say, a very intense reaction check. And another character who has once again returned onto the scene here, Adam Warlock, with the triple res comp, and in some cases just double res comps, starting to just rise in popularity more and more throughout all the regions. One of the top banned heroes in the Americas, and became one of the most picked characters in EMEA in the last week.
Hulk is going to be the next thing to go. Another of these Vanguards are getting removed, so we're not going to be seeing some of those dives come through, as well as limiting the amount of team play that you can have with things like the Namor, as Ultron is going to be removed from the side of Oblivione, as they've seen that, okay, maybe Adam is around, they don't really want to have a triple strategist or pocket Ultron composition up for grabs, as Spider Islands is known for a couple of compositions, one of which being the triple Vanguard spawn hold strategies, so potentially we see that one coming into play and making it so much harder for the attacking side to actually just walk out around the first corner.
Both teams looking at Storm, who we are, of course, on the new patch, did receive a bit of a nerf to that ult charge, and a little bit of a more severe nerf to the Jeff-Nado combo. We're definitely not seeing any Jeff, but Storms from both sides at least being considered. Let's talk about what the teams are fighting for today. There is the prize pool of over $14,000 per region, but also the top 2 teams per region for MRC automatically qualify for Ignite Stage 2. No open qualifiers required.
Well, Oblivione are going to have a lot of flying power, so Crashers definitely going to be putting this Hela to good use. That Supernova and a Mega Hurricane team up. Firestorm is going to be coming out into the mix, and that will be able to damage through these strategist ultimates coming on through, as Allura on that Loki isn't really going to be looking so much in the air as keeping Ash and Missouri on the Groot and the Magneto alive.
Jealous able to get the pickup onto Oligator early. Like you said, a lot of pressure on this Hela, but proving they've got what it takes, pushing on in immediately. But the group is slowing this down. They've taken down Zuri. So far, Crashers with the momentum. That's the triple as they make their way forward. Jealous able to get Ash and Viv, I'm going to call them W1 Triple V, able to get the storm on this push. Oblivione sent all the way back, and are we going to see the quick reinforce? Yes, the second hold coming in with that strange portal.
True, but they picked Sector very late in that fight, so Cloak and Dagger isn't originally going to be there. Through the teleporter, everyone from Exo goes with Allura, using the regen domain to cushion the landing, but already Intent is off of that culling turret, having to just swap over to the primary, making sure that they go in and out of that portal without coming under too much fire before the Eternal Bond copied by the Loki can come on through and make sure that this Punisher can really start taking this fight aggressively.
Setting up that culling turret, it is a static area. And in this case, the turret itself, the nose of it spawned on the other side of the portal, meaning it wasn't able to shoot through the portal, it was just firing into the distance. And Intent currently having a little bit of trouble getting some verticality, but they are still holding this point. Oblivione were able to put a stop to this and will now set up basically exactly where they were before.
Crashers do have access to both of their strategist ultimates, as is No Mercy going to have that Meteor M. Who is going to come out on top in the Punisher versus Magneto crossfire? As we can see, Oligator making it a little bit harder for Crashers to be able to take this fight, potentially burning down some of these resources early so that Intent can find a little bit more damage and value when those ultimates probably come into play.
Ash looking for that large group of enemies. Gonna commit to it with the Eye of Agamotto Supernova, but a lot of people are able to block it, but not enough. Magneto protects themselves, but No Mercy will still just get eaten. The Final Judgment and Supernova, though, were both burned there. It is a team wipe, but again, Oblivione burning through resources here, and Crashers still holding all of theirs.
Yeah, it feels like there was a little bit of an expectation that either Raccoon or Yandere would be able to come on through with a CC immunity in terms of that Eternal Bond or the Eternal Bond copy. And so Oblivione, like you said, did overinvest, and now Crashers should have the momentum into this next fight. Out comes the Eternal Bond, so too the Omega Hurricane, as Crash is going to be able to keep nice and healthy all the way through that Eternal Bond healing. As still, though, Oblivione holding on to a couple of these players, and Crashers is going to be relying on Jealous on this Hela to try and finish the fight once all of the ultimates are removed.
Making their way into the Sky Media M to try and block a couple of the hits, because they do lose a lot of that health. There's the regeneration domain, which are going to be almost entirely taken out, but it's enough to zone and delay. Lovely Soul Cypher, but a quick escape Sector, able to dash away, and while Crashers just burn all their resources, that cart made it essentially 5 meters during that entire time. Now they're just trying to get rid of any of the stragglers, but Oligator is still on the flank, creating openings, getting pickups, and they're trying to chase them all the way back to spawn with 42 seconds left.
Oh, the strange manages to make it just before the shield breaks, but no! Through the spawn doors, Oligator is still able to remove the strange. Ash is going to have another Eye of Agamotto, and Crashers don't have CC immunity to dodge away from it. That Maelstrom of Madness is going to be so punishing, and that's before we even start talking about the actual Punisher. Intent has the Final Judgment, and this being last fight, Crashers don't have the time to disengage it.
Here comes that Final Judgment with no counter ultimates available, so it's all up to the Seraphim barriers and the magnetic curtains, trying to catch anyone on the flanks, which they will do. Punisher is down, Crash taken down, getting rid of Whim on that Doctor Strange on the high ground, and it's an easy push in here. The Eternal Bond for extra healing as Oblivione commits everything to try and zone him. A couple members of Crashers did survive, and they're of course very close to their spawn, so as long as they can keep bodies on the point, they may be able to delay this at least for a moment, but Intent is absolutely locked in, has the positioning, and is zoning everyone off the board. Meteor M to prevent any extra shots, and that will be a hold at 54 meters for Oblivione.
Spider Islands has seen its fair share of spawn holds. It is very much known for where actually the spawn hold composition began its roots, with Peps being able to pull the first ever map against Virtus Pro. They established a triple Vanguard composition, whereupon you would lose that first fight at the spawn doors, everyone would die on card, and then you would just strange TP all the way back in to make sure that you took a maximum of 4 fights coming on through. Unfortunately, all of those time bank drains really impacted Crashes in terms of distance that they were able to pick up. This is just going to be one good fight win for Oblivione if Crashers aren't careful.
I heard this referred to once as the quantity versus quality defense, where you either set up with something that is just going to try and hold the point, like we are seeing from Oblivione to begin with a lot of Punisher, and then a lot of setup. Sometimes you could see something like the Penny, but then you see the quantity version, which is, like you mentioned, that triple Vanguard, just consistently just reinforce, swap to the fastest characters once the teleports are gone, and just literally just keep rushing the point, and eventually you might be able to run down that overtime. And the fact is, Oblivione did a little bit of a mix of both, getting that extra push on in, and Oligator doing something that we did see a little bit from Virtus Pro and Insomnia earlier. They're going for that cosmic fastball to launch in Oligator, but they are not going to commit to this because everyone is a bit too far back.
Yeah, but Oblivione are on a classic breaker spawn hold composition, and oh, well, that's not your classic 1v1, but it absolutely will do for a target. If you can get the hell out of the way, you don't have to worry about a magic pick coming through from the defensive side, and that is Jealous removed instantly.
Intent did get taken down though, so that was a 1-for-1. Jealous now going to be respawning, making their way back in. A spawn trap was set with the Doctor Strange, but that card is still continuing to creep on in, looking for a setup as Intent takes to the high ground. Scourge Grenade has to be used to back up as Crash is getting focused a lot here. Another pickup from Oligator, this time onto the Magneto, trying to pick them up, gets that damage resist and will be able to get out of danger and start to creep around to the back line. Several tasty members here.
Regen domain's already been forced as well, thanks to the Wolverine shenanigans! And that's going to be a regen domain coming on through from Oblivione in its side. Yandere has been able to build up the God of Mischief. Out comes Eternal Bond into a Terror Cape, aggressively played, but Allura has the actual Cloak and Dagger ultimate to narrow, and that's going to be Intent with the final judgment. Potentially the final nail in the coffin coming on through to break the defense of Crashes as they're running out of players and resources. Eye of Agamotto gets cancelled by clobbering time, and Oblivione are still standing strong.
They were able to clean on up. The Doctor Strange getting taken out last is going to be the key factor, meaning no chance of reinforcements. With the cart being that far back, there was just not enough time to react. Very nicely done by Oblivione. They're able to claim game number 1 with Allura going to be taking that MVP. They were just constantly sieging the healing. They were playing extremely safe, but making sure that they always had that God of Mischief set up for the Eternal Bond to make sure that they could push on in. And then they were doing the classic that we are seeing from all of these Cloak and Dagger players these days of Eternal Bonding into the backline and then Terror Caping through the entire team.
Yeah, I mean, Terror Cape does get stopped by shields, so if you are in front of the Vanguards, then they will be able to block it off. However, if you're behind them, surprise! Suddenly everyone has 28% damage vulnerability for the next 3 seconds, and if you have Final Judgment as a follow-up as well, it really is just absolutely lethal. They started off the map so strongly too, with the Wolverine coming through, and even though it is traded, like you said, Intent does go down at the same time as Jealous. Attacker spawn right behind them in comparison to defenders who have to make the very long traipse all the way back to the fight, given the fact that Strange was already in play. You couldn't just swap and TP back.
Looking at Allura there with that MVP, 13 KOs, 0 times getting taken out, 20 assists, 3 final hits of their own, which is almost as many as the top KOs on the other team, 8k damage, which is as much as Oligator, and 32k healing. A solid 12k more than almost anyone else in the game, nearly double Sector and Yandere.
I mean, when your team is in control of the space, Loki gets to do whatever Loki wants. Let's be honest. Every single time, it really did feel like Crashes were forced into burning the regen domains off of just trying to keep up whoever got grabbed out by the Wolverine early on, as opposed to Exo, who could save the regen domain cooldown for when they actually needed it during the brawl stage of the fight, and it just meant that they had the permanent lead in terms of overall sustain.
They absolutely did. They just kept the control the entire time. The regeneration domains, we saw them on the other side as well. There were some pretty solid ones to give them the blocks into the Meteor M at one point, into the Goddess of Death. But overall, it was just full control coming in from Oblivione. And we'll see if they can do so again, as our map number 2 is Yggdrasill Path.
So Crash's last time protected the Hela. I wonder if they're going to do it again, as
did
some
pretty
teams
well.
do look for Hela as a hit scan to take on flyers, but Hela, if you don't have the pocket behind her, can be pretty easy for those flyers to just quite literally dive bomb on top of her as crashes. Take out the torch. If the Hela is in play, she's not going to have to worry about Johnny Storm on her back.
We saw a lot of setups there from Oligator, just zoning everyone in these early stages of the game, sieging in, and doing several wraparounds. Again, Human Torch is extremely mobile, has a little bit of a speed boost, has that flaming meteor to dash away, which is also a bonus health and technically crowd control if you can land on top of your dots. It is one of the hardest characters to actually finish when you try to move in for a pickup. Hit scans can work, but again, you need to get them before they can flaming meteor out. Banning it is in some cases just easier.
Well, speaking about banning, Magneto is taken out, so that makes the Punisher's job much easier too. No final judgment, meteor, and potential shutdown, as crashes will also protect the Luna, which the last time we saw get banned out. This is the live patch, so Hawkeye's Luna team-up has had a little bit of a nerf, but we could still potentially see a little bit of it come through from the min-maxing side of the attackers, just utilizing that ice arrow to get an early pick and force the defenders to take a big step back.
And the dance party has entered its extended remix, as Loki will be protected as well, to make sure that you can go for that 24 solid seconds of Fate of Both Worlds, using the God of Mischief to clone Luna. There are a chance that we could see some players go in for, like we said, that Cloak and Dagger, to if they want to play a little more burst heavy without having to worry on just committing to a damage boost. But we'll see if that's the direction they take, as Storm is once again going to be protected.
Yeah, Storm, another character who provides damage boosts with the Goddess boost, 25% for self, 12% for allies, but it works so incredibly well if you have a Punisher to play off of, but no Punisher for either sides. Okay. That also makes sense why we removed the torch a little bit earlier from the side of crashes, because you're not going to be able to do your Firestorm team up.
Very true, but you can still do Jeff Nado, even though it did get banned out. It is available, but with that being one of the few reasons we did see Jeff picked in a lot of our Ignite games, the chances of seeing the Shark, even with his new kicks, has severely diminished for a lot of these teams. They can still get some pretty solid healing output. Speed boost on spawns is, of course, extremely popular, but right now we're looking at teams looking at, of course, Adam Warlock, if they want to go for that more Starlord composition, but with Magneto, that does become a lot more difficult, and, of course, that the Loki and the Luna Snow combo. It is a classic from Season 1 that we're still seeing played today.
Yeah, Crash is looking like they're going to be playing again Jealous onto this Hela, which gives a little bit more survivability to Yandere, having that Asgard team up, being able to get revived if the Hela is able to find a kill. Storm 2 is going to be up in the sky for Crashes to potentially have a momentum push. Goddess boost also giving you speed boost can make it a little bit easier for the attacker side to round that first corner and collapse onto a defense before they get fully shot down.
Counterstorm on the other side. Oblivione starting with their own. Oligator was looking at the Wolverine, but has decided to move away from it. These teams are actually a mirror match by the looks of it. Everything is completely identical, which means, of course, it comes down to a skill matchup.
And that's immediately going to give the defensive side a little bit of an advantage, given the amount of angles that they start off with at the very beginning of this round. However, Strange Shield has been broken on the side of Oblivione, so over to the corner they'll fall, being able to regroup and restabilize without Crashes being able to put pressure on them.
No mercy, trying to lead the charge along with Wim as they make their way up to the high ground. Raccoon keeping the healing on from behind as Crash is entering into a duel with Intent, but Intent playing a little bit further back to avoid getting picked off. Is still holding this high ground though. Will rotate around to just get shots from behind, but doesn't have any health packs up here, so is in a little bit of danger. Has to Astral Flock to try and get away, and will just make it to the health packs.
So Intent is actually okay playing this angle. Even though you're out of LOS of your team, you've got the Idol Aura from Sector, which means if Sector manages to heal a Vanguard, that's going to have a 35% trickle effect over towards the Hell, and we can actually start to see the health bar slowly repairing itself as Sector continues to build up to that first Fate of Both Worlds. Crash knows that they have to go clear that angle. The Hella left unchecked is a danger to the supports, and that's finally going to be the Hella removed because of the support.
Raccoon Gaming and Crash teaming up together to get the pickup. Jealous going to get locked down with the Frost as Allura comes in for the first Fate of both worlds. Yandere matching on the other side, as both teams are just going to have to wait out this healing. Neither one with a lot of damage to finish anyone off this stage, but Ayavakamoto will get popped nice and early, right at the end of that ultimate. It's enough to take out Jealous again.
Regen Domain is going to be able to come on through from the side of Allura, though, so everyone from EXO does live the initial burst of the Psionic Seduction, but what comes afterwards, the same cannot be said for, as Crashes should be able to break through that corner. And Oblivione going to have to put Allura over to the Doctor's range to teleport back in place. Intent already trying to claim and develop an off angle. Can't reveal themselves until the rest of the team comes on through. As it looks like we're going to have a double storm forecast with a mega hurricane potentially being mirrored.
Moving on in, able to take down Jealous, pushing into the backline, committing quite deep, using that Fate of both worlds, and Ash with the Psionic Seduction. An incredible ability as it does do tick damage. You mentioned you do get protected with Regeneration Domain from the initial burst, but with that Psionic Seduction doing AoE damage to anything, not just anyone in the field, it will eventually clean out those Regeneration Domain lamps, so it can be an extremely effective counter.
Really good re-engagement tool too, given the silence effect that it brings with it. That's why Crashes were quite literally stunned from using their ultimates. It's just a delay though, and now EXO have to face the problem anew. Goddess of Death is used from Intent, a second lease on life for the Hela to take to the skies and avoid all of the damage on the low ground, but the team is already lacking significant players on the fight itself. That frontline core is going to get broken in two.
Ash soul siphoned in to make sure they can't escape. That's going to be the lockdown, and immediately we're seeing the retreat sector having to literally run away to regroup with their team as we see Crashes grabbing point number one, and they're still holding on to Aya Magamoto, Fate of both worlds, and Inter, and that God of Mischief, setting themselves up beautifully for a nice aggressive push into point number two.
I believe that's Intent on the right side that we can see, trying to find an off-angle magic pick, but no, actually the Hela is with the rest of the team. Looks like they got cleared off of the lane by Jealous going off and marking the angle, so EXO's space that they have to play around with is much smaller, but the Hela winning the 1 versus 1 now expands that territory, as Intent with the confidence to take this fight can start applying damage onto a very long open line of sight that's perfect to catching the disengage.
With lots of cover to keep them protected, the ability to drop down here to grab anyone on the retreat. No Mercy is getting targeted. Sephiroth barrier is popped, and they have to use the Cloak of Levitation just to get out of danger here while they wait for Crashes to reinforce them. But with everyone returning, they're getting that support, they're getting the healing, meaning that they can try to re-engage, and they do still have, like we said, that Aya Magamoto at the ready. Cloak of Levitation going to come off cooldown. Aya Magamoto into the backline. It's going to be Zuri who pops it first, but Fate of both worlds is allowing Crashes to push on forward and try to re-engage. Regeneration Domain lamps and take it down as they push on in, but Oligator wants to put a stop to this, timing it with the end of the Fate of both worlds. Omega Hurricane to try and focus them down, but the damage output is just not enough.
Good catch as well coming through from Sector, meeting Oligator as they drop out of their ultimate form. Crashes should have, however, the advantage when this fight goes a little bit longer, as they've got Jealous's Goddess of Death as well as all of that damage to catch EXO's disengage. Now they have no choice but to full send walk onto Crash's team, and they haven't been able to find a pick so far.
Crash is going to try and commit it once again. The second ultimate will expire, so they pull on in with Omega Hurricane, able to take out Zuri. But the strategists all get out of there. No one gets taken down as Intent takes to the sky to try and get a little bit of counter damage and prevent themselves from getting picked off by the Omega Hurricane. As once again, they take the long path and begin to siege in as a very aggressive No Mercy goes and takes the fight to Oligator and takes them down with a melee attack.
No Mercy can be as aggressive as they want. No holds barred because we've got the ultimate, the only ultimate currently on the field. EXO are in full regroup state at the moment, but now they might get a little bit more aggressive. They've been able to win the Hela duel once more. Aya Magamoto comes into play, but you have to worry about Ash's Carbon Crush being able to stop it as Crashes utilize the Psionic Seduction, quite literally holding Oblivione hostage. If you try and contest this payload, you walk directly into the End of Silence.
Both strangers now with Eye of Agamotto, as No Mercy is still held onto this. But Yandere will have the reinforcements once they go in. If we see that commitment onto the Eye of Agamotto, if they can time their ultimate well, they can of course copy onto a Fate of Both Worlds. Commitment from Zuri onto Crash as they push on in. Who's locked down, but they're going to be sustained as Yandere will go in for that Fate of Both Worlds with the God of Mischief, Allura, with the exact same Psionic Seduction to try and set them up, but the healing output is just too much. Ash will be able to take out Raccoon Gaming on the back, so make a Hurricane to try and capitalize on Yandere's expiring ultimate. Comes on into the backline. Loki trying to teleport away. It's going to be Jealous who's taken out. Loki is trying to escape with the invisibility as Eye of Agamotto on the counter comes on down, and Oblivione dominate this fight.
Yeah, Oblivione being able to get Raccoon, that's the tuning factor. The second that they managed to pick off that Luna with Fate of Both Worlds fully in charge, they just have such a huge lead in terms of overall sustainability, having both strategists still up, all of the cooldowns as well. And since so many of those players are stacked one on top of each other, taking that brawl fest of a fight, that means that the piercing ability is going to be able to connect onto so many players coming on through from the ice odds of the Luna.
Looking at some of these statistics here, damage outputs. The Storms doing huge work here, 11k damage, but it's actually Jealous who is topping the damage output for their team. The top damage output total, though, has been W1VV. The Emmas have been doing huge work, 14k for Ash, 16k for Wiv, as they have been the ones who've been leading the charge, having to duel consistently with these strangers that have the range to try and snipe these Storms, and of course unleashing as much damage as they can into these Fate of Both Worlds to try and take someone out through them.
Yeah, I mean, Withers had an amazing carbon crush, being able to grab Missouri after the Eye of Agamotto had come on through to counter any potential Maelstrom of Madness coming on out. Unfortunately, it was not enough, as it really has just been a story of two Hellas, Intent and Jealous. These two have been going at it time and time again, their teams trying to give them as many resources as possible. But if one team's Hella goes down, they just lose so much ground, so much confidence to be able to keep themselves in that space, and disengaging a lot of the time means that you're bleeding another player from the Hella, getting another pick to catch you around that corner.
They're literally so close. Both have gone down 5 times, 7 versus 9 in terms of KOs. They are so close in terms of being able to just try and win these duels, as Intent tries to put that number a little bit more in their favor. Entering into the duel with Jealous, it's going to be Oligator who will pick it up, but Intent definitely took the better side of that fight, as No Mercy is getting focused down, have to retreat into the regen domain.
Yeah, they've got to respect the fact now that Oblivione, the ball is in that court. They've got the one-sided Hella duel right now, which means that they have control of the high ground on the right side, unless Crashes try and dig their heels into the sand and go and charge the Hella. Intent goes down. Focus down by Withers.
Trying to set themselves up, holding the line. Oligator staying low. They know that these Hellas are going to be trying to deal with the Storms as best as they can. So staying low, almost at ground level, to make sure that they're behind their Vanguards is the safer play, at least for this first early setup. And then dip up and down. Immediately you can see a shot coming in from Jealous there, as Oligator will drop back down to make sure they're in range of their strategists behind, and setting themselves up for that Omega Hurricane directly onto the regen domain, so they can burst off through. Fate of Both Worlds will be forced out and countered by the Crash Omega Hurricane to focus them down.
Yeah, Crash utilizes a Mega Hurricane at the same time as Raccoon aids with the damage boost, which shreds through Oligators before they can get caught by the team, and now they've got one-sided damage boost. It is a one-sided fight, as we can see Crash is just trying to make sure that they don't lose the Storm at the tail end of things. Good shielding coming on through from No Mercy, as well as utilizing just that little bit of a lip in terms of high ground. As Crash now gets to utilize this pillar and try and make a little bit of a slower push on up for the side of Oblivione, who are coming in with a lot of major ultimates.
Eye of Agamotto's on both sides at the ready, but with a Goddess of Death for Intent and that Fate of Both Worlds, that is literally all they need. That is Season 0 in a nutshell, as they try to set themselves up for a move. They just need to try and get onto these backlines, as everyone stays extremely grouped up with those Loki clones. There's the Fate of Both Worlds, dropped quite early for Raccoon, as Yandere already falling. They kind of have to commit before they're sniped off by Intent.
Fate of Both Worlds comes out early, but that just means that Oblivione live it. Wait, get Intent onto an off angle on this right side. Sector now comes out with the Fate of their own worlds, and that's going to be an Eye of Agamotto setting up perfectly for follow-through on intent.
With their own fate of both worlds to push on in from the sector. They're easily able to hold the line, and that is going to be point number 1. Grabbed by Oblivione, meaning we are down to a game of distance. 90 meters and 49 centimeters. Crashers have to put a stop to this before that, but they're almost about to have every ultimate except for Fate of both worlds as Crashers just about to charge up that Omega Hurricane. Everyone else already at the ready.
Oblivione have to be careful. Give Crashers an inch. They'll hold you for a mile on this defense. Ash a little bit removed from the fight. They're going to look to Oligata to open it up. God of Mischief comes on through. Both Lunas trying to find any form of sustain that they can, but Oligata will get the better of their counterpart this time around. And because of this, Crashers have to invest. Out comes Psionic Seduction. Missouri forced to fall back and try and shield off the effect for their team, and it allows Ash to actually trade. No Mercy goes down.
No Mercy got put on the half cooldown for their ultimate, got caught by the Carbon Crush as they push on back in. The moving from Oblivione is being not stopped because no one can set up. They're outnumbered. Regeneration Domain comes in to protect with release. The moment the Carbon Crush takes them down. Who is left? No Mercy setting up the portal from just outside the spawn to try and make sure they can make it in. Gets pushed off the point but has to march back in. They need the reinforcements. Raccoon arrives in the fate of both worlds, which will buy at least a little bit of time as they take out Zuri to try and hold this. Crashes putting everything on the line right now with no ultimates available for Oblivione. They will get a couple seconds, but Oligaton will get taken down just before they're able to get that Omega Hurricane.
Sector, though, has been able to build the fate of both worlds. And Crashes definitely going to be feeling the pressure now as Oblivione try to open up that door. Ash catches Yandere before the God of Mischief can be built. Huge Eye of Agamotto temporarily stalls out Oblivione's momentum, but it might just be temporary as they've still got all of the ultimates and all of that pressure to apply on. Omega Hurricane covers the payload, and unfortunately not a single defensive player is left in its wake.
Nicely done. Oblivione take Yggdrasill Path. Very much a closer game. There was a little bit of trading back and forth. We saw some great reactions, and of course this is double elimination, so we will not be saying goodbye to Crashers here, but Oblivione take the 2-0 and will continue their journey through that upper bracket. You mentioned they're one of the teams that people are going to be watching alongside teams like Pervia and Exodia, trying to make their way back in, as of course, going this route, you don't have to play against any of the former Ignite teams.
It's very interesting, the strategist lineup that we got to see. We don't really get to see a lot of the Loki Luna come on through, but given the fact that this is not advanced ban system, I guess these teams feel if we have access to it, the other side will at least get access to it as well, so it's a-okay to leave it in play, and we just go down to a mirror matchup as we get to see more and more of mirrors, and it was mirror everything. Mirror ultimates for the Storms, and the Lunas, and the Lokis, and the Hellas. And so much focus just went down to these really small, minute plays and counter plays as well. The EMEAs being able to utilize Carbon Crushes to just stop follow-ups, or even the Eye of Agamottos themselves. Such a huge in for Oblivione, even though they were currently on the disengage. They were trying to just play full absorb, full live, sustain through with a really aggressive Psionic Seduction. They were able to just stabilize and come back, and unfortunately for the defense, Crashers were never able to regain that momentum themselves.
But you can have a look, just looking at the statistics here, it might be a little harder to tell which team actually came out on top. That is how much they were trading back and forth with these mirror matchups, like you say. Both the Strangers, exact same amount of times getting taken out, pretty close in terms of damage blocked and damage done. You look at the Emma Frosts, or again, almost identical. The only real difference we're seeing is in the Strategists, where we do see a little bit more healing on one side compared to a little bit more damage on the other, where XO got an extra K or 2 healing on the side of Crashers, whereas Crashers were getting a little bit more damage output, almost 8k for both of them.
Yeah, well, that and the fact that Intent walked away with 20 eliminations and Jealous 14. So missing those 6 eliminations, and they didn't all come through in one singular fight, they were spread out. But when you do manage to find those eliminations as a Hela player, you just get so much space because it commands respect. Hela is a character who does not have her true potential in her ultimate form. In fact, a lot of the time you use her ultimate to live, to make sure that you're giving your strategist a little bit of time to set up their cooldowns and catch you as you fall out of it, because that second health bar does not directly attach to the Hella's own health bar, plus it's CC immunity, so you can use it to frame perfect dodge out of things like the Eye of Agamotto, or if you feel like a Meteor M is getting a little bit too close for comfort of when that comet is hurtling towards you. Hella's true damage, where you really have to worry about her, is when she's just in her base Hella state. The ability to two-tap these squishies to immediately place someone into a critical headshot follow-up off of Soul Drainer and then crosshair, just anticipation of placement because you know that they're going to be in that one place that their hand has been forced into. She truly is terrifying, and it's something that a lot of these players already know how to play because she was high meta, one of the best duelists all the way back at the beginning of the game.
It comes down to that sniping from a distance. Like you said, the off angles, the pressure it's doing in the base form is able to just create so much pressure. It used to be worse in that you could two-tap people. This is the nerfed version of Hella that's still showing a little bit of pressure and a little bit of dominance. No, very little Punisher. You can see in the bans, it was banned out this time, but in game number 1, it actually saw a little bit less play. Only one team actually showing up with it. Crashers playing it, but almost not played at all from Oblivione. So it is interesting to see how these teams prioritize compared to the Ignite sides.
Yeah, Punisher, we see him pretty much every single game, unless he's banned out on the side of Ignite, but he can be a little bit harder to make work with the Lunar Snow. It's why a lot of teams prefer actually having the Cloak and Dagger with him. The fact that for the Lunar Snow with the Fate of Both Worlds, you're locked into either I'm fully damage boosting or I'm fully healing. And that means that if you swap to a damage boost for your Punisher, potentially you let him die in the interim. As we got to see a lot of the time, right, when both of the storms went for the Mega Hurricanes, you had to have full confidence that your storm would be able to absolutely shred the other storm within seconds before you went for the damage boost. Otherwise, you might be leaving your duelist out to dry.
Well, we have not left anyone out to dry for that game because it was extremely exciting, at least. Once again, Moxi, thank you very much for joining me. Where can people find you?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Tetcher. You can find me over on, I guess, Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. I'm dying on the hill that it's Twitter. That is GottMoxi Casts with 2 T's, and you can follow me on Twitch as well. I do regular co-streams of EMEA Ignite, NA, and Asia because I have absolutely no sleep schedule, where I'm joined by a bunch of special guests with either professional players, coaches, managers, or even some of the casters themselves, and that is at GottMoxi.
Thank you very much for joining. I'm going to pause the stream so that I can do the member shoutouts without bugging you. But once again, thanks for joining me, and I hope we can do this again at some point.
Heck yeah.
Thank you very much, Moxi, for joining me today. I have let them go on about their day. Make sure to give a thank you to Moxi in the chat. And also, if you are interested in supporting the channel, of course, you can like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell. Anything that helps the videos in the algorithm is all incredibly appreciated. I'll put out shorts if you want to check those out. But if you really want to support, then you can become a member. You support monthly, you get early videos, you get behind the scenes if I go to the offline events, and you will get your names shouted out, put at the credits of the news videos and shouted out in these casting videos. So shout out to the members Dump, Alt, Arso, Donkey Pokey, and John. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. It is incredibly appreciated. As again, YouTube doesn't pay out a lot of AdSense wise, and while I am getting some support for Ignite, you know, food is expensive these days, and the amount of time I spend on this channel is essentially full-time at this point, so any little bit of extra help is appreciated. So thank you all very much for watching. I have been Tetcher, and I will see you all tomorrow.